Thanks for joining me on the DevReady Podcast today. For those of you who are new here, I'm meeting Jameel for the first time, learning about what he does, and then we're going to have a discussion around tech sales and dive right in. So, Jameel, take it away.
Thanks you for the introduction. My name is Jameel Rehman. I'm the founder of Tech Sales Academy. I'm a former 2X top 1% AE at Cisco and Telstra Enterprise. In 2023, I was Cisco's #1 mid-market AE worldwide. And basically, I've made the hop from being an AE to coaching and development because I think there's a gigantic gap in the quality of tech sales education. And essentially, there is no standard for what we do in the tech sales industry, in the segment. There's just nothing, right? So building that, I mean, if every tech organization in the world wants to make billions of dollars selling to people, but they're not investing in the right skills and development into people to actually sell that stuff, then obviously there's a huge market for that because tech is all encompassing and really all technology are tools to solve people problems, but nobody's solving the problems of the people in tech. And that's really what I'm about, right? Is coaching and development for AEs. Might get into some sales teams at some point, but really focusing on that personalized experience.
So before we dive in, what's an AE?
An AE is an account executive. So they're usually the primary salesperson or lead an account sales team in a tech organization. So usually you'd be dealing with me as an account executive. I would be the face of your brand. I would be the face of Cisco, the face of Telstra, and I would be your primary relationship holder inside the organization. And then it's my responsibility to own the relationship, making sure you're having a great experience dealing with the company, and then leveraging the resources in the ecosystem I've got around me to help solve your problems, sell you solutions, etc.
Okay. So how does one become the top 1%, such as yourself, in those roles?
Well, it's a mix of things. I've been asked this a lot. To become a top performing AE, there's a lot of intrinsic skills I think you need. You need to be a competitor. You need to have the drive to succeed. That's one of the things that I've got that I probably don't talk much about, is that I want to win. I want to be the best at what I do, and how you do anything is how you do everything. So there's definitely an internal drive to get better at this. I think also being organized is a big aspect of that. Having a lot of structure in the way you do things, because a lot of people, a lot of AEs, a lot of salespeople, they're jumping around from task to task, problem to problem, opportunity to opportunity. They don't really know what's going on day to day. They're being pulled in so many directions because it is such a multi-meta skill role to have, because you're not just doing sales, you're doing stakeholder management. You've got to understand the technology. You've got to understand business acumen. So being structured in your approach really, really helps to become a top AE. I honestly say that you can be a top 10% AE just by being organized.
Okay.
Obviously, I think you need to have a strong service-based mindset. Is that one of the things I'm most proud of in my career is that I only sold things to customers that they needed to be sold to. I only solved their problems. I'm a passionate problem solver. I'm not a salesperson. I don't like being called a salesperson. I don't like the stereotype that comes with being a salesperson. Like, we all dismiss that. So just being really genuine about really enjoying solving customer problems and helping people in the process, that goes a long way, because really what we want to do is deal with people that we trust first and foremost, especially when we're making big multi-million-dollar decisions that could impact an entire organization, that could impact your reputation as a CIO or CTO. You want to make sure that the person on the other side of that fence is helping you and genuinely helping you achieve your outcomes. And when customers recognize that within you, you lock in. And that's when not just the first sale comes through, but the second, the third, the fourth, because you're in that trusted personal network. You're who you know. It's not about what you know. What you know as an AE is actually quite limited compared to all the technology behind you, but customers trust in your ability to find the what you knows and rely on you as the who you know to get that done.
Okay. So I can see that being probably the clear difference with how people may classify who don't know what the AE is as a salesperson, because the salesperson just sells to hit a KPI, and if they're the general ones, they're not going to care about what they're trying to do. They're just trying to push something onto you because they've got to hit a target to sell something. They're not trying to solve a problem. They're solving their own problem, not your problem.
Correct. They're solving the problem of how do I make quota and how do I crowbar their problems into my attainment. And that's the stereotype that we feel when we deal with a salesperson, right? That's that stranger danger, that immediate stereotype that you get when a salesperson walks up to you. It's like, ugh, this idiot just wants to try and push something on me. They don't know me. They don't really care for me. And that's an important first step that a lot of salespeople fail to recognize, is to overcome that stranger danger and go, hey, we're cool. I'm here to help. I'm just here to help.
So when you were starting out, were you always in mind of being in this sort of vertical, trying to be the account executive and then moving into something on your own, or did you have a different vision when you started?
Mate, I fell into technology sales. A lot of people do. A lot of people fall into sales. They're type A personalities with a high tolerance for pain and a caffeine addiction. And I fell into sales because I realized I was working at a gym over a decade ago, trying to become a PT, which is a terrible idea. And I realized I was better at selling memberships and supplements than I was actually training people. And so I realized I had the knack, because I've always been a talker, as you can probably tell. I've always been a talker, always liked solving problems. That's my natural innate gift. So then I took that into a middling interest in tech. It was the peak of the iPhone back then. I was 21, 22. It's cool. It's interesting. So I got a job at a Telstra shop in retail, and then just destroyed the business, like blasted through it, winning top sale after award after top sale award, just really enjoying being good at something and honing this craft. And then made the transition from B2C to B2B in 2015 and fell flat on my face, because it's a completely different game. It's a completely different kettle of fish. It's so much more complex. Didn't understand the technology. I didn't understand enterprise ICT at all. I went from selling, it wasn't even, NBN was barely out back then. It was ADSL services and, mostly 4G. To then data networks, didn't know anything about dev, didn't know anything about software, and had to just go through another immense learning curve and going through it. But always had that entrepreneurial spirit. So I think that's, again, a differentiator, is you don't want to be an employee. You want to be your own personal brand. And that's what's important. So treating your business like you are the CEO of your own organization. You've got a $20 million portfolio of customers. Well, you run a $20 million business. And how would you operate and how would you act if you had that responsibility put on your shoulders? And so that makes a great natural transition into entrepreneurship and doing your own thing, because you already know how to deal with high value problems with high value people. Instead of just selling somebody else's solution, you're selling your own. And that's the natural transition. I'm sure you probably would have had the same experience yourself building a business.
Oh, well, we were a little bit, we were straight out of uni. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, no corporate experience. In my final year of uni, I started the business with my business partner. I was a third founder. He left after 6 months, but we've been doing it ever since. So my only experience is a summer internship programming and then working at Coles for 8 years.
Coles for 8 years, yeah.
So I'm a good fruiterer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm actually, I worked that was my first job as well, as a Coles. I was a good, they called me a dairy fairy. Well, they called everyone a dairy fairy back then. But in the freezers, stacking milk. Oh, that smell of off milk, brutal, mate. Still stings the nostrils now.
Yeah, I still get celery from when I was cutting the celery stalks. Like, as soon as I smell celery, it's just off-putting.
Oh, yeah, mate.
So having that sort of entrepreneurial spirit and thinking, all right, it's a unique spin saying, all right, if you've got these clients and you're working, you're trying to sell them, pretending that it's your organization and how you sort of approach it. What made you take the leap to start Techstars?
With Tech Sales Academy, it was just seeing this huge gap in the market for years and no one really addressing it properly. So when I joined Telstra Enterprise and I had to take a non-sales role to begin with. I was an account support role when I made the transition because I just didn't have the relevant qualification and skills. I got no training in that role at all. Zero product training, zero knowledge, process training, nothing. I was like, what the hell is this about? Like, I'm just expected to know this stuff. There's a lot of assumed knowledge.
That's what you expect to get when you walk into some place, especially like you hear Telstra, you think they got their shit together.
Yeah, they don't. So then I had to figure it all out, learning myself, went through the fire hose of figuring out a sales process, all the technology, how all this pieces together. Then when I became an actual account executive and got my first B2B sales role properly, I thought, would there be more training? No, absolutely not. And I, again, just was obsessive about my process and then got to, within 4 years of being an account executive, I was actually coaching other enterprise BDMs in sales process and, absolutely crushed my number. I haven't missed quota in my entire career. My average is about 152%. So, I know what I'm doing. And sort of people ask, and what am I doing? And then I got made redundant. And I was like, man, I want to get out of this machine for good. I can recognize this huge gap in the market for sales training. I'm a good coach. I love mentoring and developing people. It's my passion. Let me start this idea. Started it up whilst I was reeling from being made redundant as a top 1% performer at Telstra. I was like, yeah, I just want to work for a corporation again. Ran out of cash, as is what happens when you start a business and have no idea actually how to run a business. I didn't actually do it with that business. I had a different startup at the time though. Went to Cisco as a salesperson, as a mid-market account executive. And then they had training, but it wasn't that great. It was all product. It wasn't much about solutions, sales process, etc. And then I'm looking around, I'm like, this is a $58 billion US tech company that doesn't teach their people the right things to teach. And so I was like, I got curious again. And I was like, so how big is this problem that we've got? And in my first and really only full year at Cisco, I was the #1 mid-market AE worldwide, and I won 3 global top sales prizes. And I got to go to Europe, and I got to go to Asia and the US. And actually, in these junkets, I did a bit of my own research about what they're teaching people. And then I would just do my research about asking colleagues and friends, like, what did you learn to get good at sales? And I'm like, nothing, mate. I just sort of figured it out and put it together myself. And I realized, oh shit, there is no fundamental education for what we're doing here. Like, everyone is just making it up as they go along. No one set a standard. There's no frameworks. The closest thing we've got is MedPick, because, they got social proof that a bunch of companies were doing it, but that's just some random people's intellectual property, right? So then I'm like, I've got a genuine opportunity. There's a genuine gap in the market here that I could potentially fill. And I actually pitched the VP of sales, of global virtual sales in Amsterdam while I was there. He was my VP in the part of my business.
Yep.
And I pitched him the idea for the academy, and he's like, this is interesting. We should have a conversation about this. And I'm like, bang, that's enough. If I've got a guy that runs a, 9-figure, almost 10-figure business saying this is a really cool idea, I got enough to put that on a smaller scale. Yep. And that's what I did. I went all in. And then less than 12 months later, I took the dive, which was last year, into try and making this thing and starting to build the business from there.
Do you have Cisco on the books as a client? You're rolling out work with them, or you haven't gone to that like enterprise level yet?
No, here's the thing, is that I don't really focus. I don't want to get enterprise clients. I'm really focused on individual development, because I don't want to teach people that don't want to be taught. Right? Mm-hmm. When you are force-fed a training program, I've been in them, right? Like, I've been in boring as hell, training sessions that mean nothing. I mean, I could do them and I could probably make great money doing so, but would I really be creating impact? That's my mission here, is that I'm really passionate about developing people. And in years of coaching and my own personal development, I know that, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Yep. So I'm really on the lookout for more driven, purposeful individuals like myself that, have the drive, but they need the guidance to get to where they want to achieve things. So I will probably do something more. I've got plenty of Cisco students, right? Cisco employees that are students, going from Splunk, a lot of big vendors, but I'm not interested in that big corporate market. I just don't think it's appealing. Maybe I'll do something more localized in Australia, because I think, again, the training and development market in Australia is severely underdeveloped. There's plenty of MSPs and IT providers out there that could definitely use some sales skills improvements, because, again, it's the Wild West out there. If you're hiring a BDM or an AE and you're just a small business, an SMB IT provider, you are really hoping and praying on the skills that person brings into the business that you hire for. And that's a big question mark. So I think there's a big gap in, again, creating that standard across the business, using my systems and processes to go, here's what everyone should know. This is how we go to market. This is what you should, this is the complete process and framework you should be following for success. And I think that's a good sweet spot for me.
Making an impact is not going to happen at that large level. Like you said, if you're forced to sit into something, you can have 80% of people not paying attention because they think they either know better than you, or who is this guy? Why is he talking to us? The other people will listen, but then they're just going to get lost in the wash with everyone doing what they do. And then that the smaller target that you mentioned, the small SMB or even like startups trying to do something, generally they're like domain experts, never done sales or account executive management in their life. So they're starting something and they don't know how to sell or how to approach people to then take on their product or solution or service or whatever it may be. Just touching on what you did there. So when you mentioned you first started working at the gym and you're trying to be a PT, that's probably that common thread going through of you trying to develop people, I'm guessing, that you've had across the way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, one of the things I recognize on a bit of personal reflection is why I think I'm really into coaching and development is that I wish I had more of that when I was younger. Like I was actually a gifted child intellectually in my youngest years. So in like primary school, maybe like from prep to grade 1, I was reading 2 to 3 years ahead of most people.
Oh, wow.
Like I was quite intellectually advanced, but the public school system didn't know what to do with me. The school psychologist at that time said, it's better for his social development to stay with kids of his age, right? So I was this really smart kid that needed development, needed guidance, needed a lot more to realize my own potential. And that was really lost until I sort of figured it out myself in my late 20s. And that's part of the more purposeful, soulful mission that I've got here is that I know there are people like me out there that, yesterday's societal systems are not guaranteeing or promising tomorrow's abundant future. We understand that. Societally, things are getting weird. So we need to change that as individuals, as the people that actually get it and see it. And this is my contribution to that on a more broader societal scale.
Yeah, and that then affords you the opportunity to work with people that you want to work with and actually help the right way and get them to have that opportunity that you sort of missed out on, but you can help provide them now.
Yeah, absolutely. That it definitely heals a part of the inner child, the hurt inner child, that wishes they had that growing up. And it is, when I do talk about it from that deeper, more purposeful level, and I am, quite a spiritual being, as you can probably tell by the stuff behind me. It actually attracts a very interesting pedigree of people that are starting to wake up a little bit now, a little bit more spiritual, a little bit more in touch with the broader world, and waking up to what's going on around us. So it's like, I even had a client come to me. He's like, mate, yeah, I would love to know your coaching stuff, but I would actually just really like some spiritual guidance. I'd love to know about how you've transformed yourself, how you've, found purpose in your life, because I'm feeling a little bit lost myself. And I'm like, amazing. What an interesting hybrid to have, right, in what I'm uniquely doing and having that unique thing actually come to me. It's like, that's one of the gems that I've had from starting a business and going through the hell of, starting your own thing is having these unique little glimpses of what I can really offer my best services to. And that's really, really cool.
Yeah, so then you can actually deliver it with your beliefs along with it, not just something that you're good at. Yeah,
but I think I infuse that into everything that I do, is that I really only do what I'm passionate about. If I'm not interested in it, I don't take it in at all. And I think that's why I'm pretty convincing sometimes, is I just love teaching and I love helping people and I love explaining the problem being solved. And I like just to solve problems. Really, that's it. That's me as a 7-year-old kid in primary school, just putting my hand up, answering every question all the time. It's just that, right? It really just revert to that healthy, emboldened inner child that just wants to do fun stuff and have fun in the process.
And I share a similar philosophy, which is the problem solving and just trying to help, but it's all around software. So how do I deliver the software or a tool to help someone get what they want to get or achieve what they want to achieve?
Yeah, but mate, we are hardware and software, and I'm in a similar business, except your software is technological and mine is educational, right?
Yes, correct.
All I'm doing is downloading the skills, the software into your brain that the institution or the corporation should have done, right? But they're not. So really, that's my job, is to just give you the operating system of what it means to be great at technology sales. That's literally the name of my product, Tech Sales OS, my main course. It's the entire operating system of a great technology seller in your brain. I'm trying to download that into your brain like that scene in The Matrix where, Neo's getting the thing, the spike in the back, and I know Kung Fu. Yeah, you know how to sell, mate. Now go out there and do it.
So with the sort of clients you've been working with, if they're not in the corporate space, so the individuals, say, coming out of Cisco that you've had, if they're more the SMEs or SMBs, or you're looking at like founders and startups, do you see a common thing where they have no experience in this area at all, and then you're trying to teach them from the ground up? Or are you more working with the salespeople that come in and how to level them up to do tech sales?
Yeah, so I say that I take people from 1 to 2. 0 to 1 is from no tech sales experience or entering into the tech sales space. So usually you're an SDR, so you're picking up the phones, doing cold calls and lead generating. That's usually the entry point into technology sales. Sorry, excuse me. Where I do my best work are the salespeople, the account executives, the people that are wanting to get into the AE role, because that is the main role that you want as a salesperson in tech. So yeah, I'm really focused on the salesperson. I have considered, because I did do a bunch of lecturing for a big Australian VC fund, where I was doing sales lectures for technical founders. And I have thought about that as a niche, potentially, of coaching and development for technical founders to teach them the sales skills, because realistically you need a non-technical founder to be, to get out of to be out in the world and be okay speaking to customers, as opposed to you wanting to be in the basement or being, coding. That's what you usually want to do best. Is you're better with tech than you are with people. That's totally fine. So yeah, I think those are my areas. The account executives, potentially looking at founders that want that human edge, because yeah, they just don't have it within themselves, but they've got something that they believe in.
Okay, so what's the biggest probably difference between normal sales and then the tech sales that someone needs to sort of understand?
Here's the thing. I don't think it's that much different. There's a couple of variations on it, but if you're under the context of B2B sales, okay, because sales is generally considered B2C, which is business to consumer. That's a different kettle of fish. Yep. If you're talking about business to business sales, really, there's not much of a difference. Really, all you need is domain knowledge in your technology and your solutions and how they solve the customer's problem. Everything else is largely the same, right? Understanding your ICP, your ideal customer persona, the people that you're trying to solve problems for, your UVP, your unique value proposition, what makes you uniquely valuable in market to solve their problems, lead generation, qualifying, closing, it's pretty much all the same. So you could honestly take out the tech out of my academy and say just call it Sales Academy, because I really focus on the meta skills, the human skills, communication, presentation, emotional intelligence, a little bit of business acumen. So really, when people come to me, they're bringing in a knowledge of confidence, something that they are confident about their solution and know how to talk about it. But they need to know how to just have structure in their process, get a little bit more confidence in what they're doing, and actually just follow a process, because there's so much at risk for them personally and professionally to get this right. So I think when it comes to the skill part, it really is just knowledge and then a process. It really is that simple, I think.
Okay. It's having the process to provide consistency. So having assets that are always the same, so you can save time in presentations, and knowing how to just talk to them without having to read the slides verbatim is probably going to make the conversation just flow so much easier. Understanding what the person's talking about, what are their hang-ups? Like, are they talking about price or time or cost of change? Like, there are different ways that you will then approach, I'm assuming, on how you're then going to turn your presentation to hit their pain points, so you're talking to them, not to a different persona.
Yeah, exactly right. It's solving the problem for the person in front of you. And then, an advanced level of that would be stakeholder management or multi-level engagements, and then just being able to speak their language and sort of correlate how everything comes together in the solution. And that's really all you're doing in sales. Like, if you were to really crush it down, it's like you're explaining how is this valuable to me in solving my problems to customers all day. That's your job, right? And just ideally, if you're really good at it, you're delivering on that promise and they want to buy from you again, because they're like, finally, someone I can trust to actually solve my problems for me. And you do it again and again and again.
Yeah. So having that repeatability is key, because otherwise the business you're working with or your own business isn't going to get anywhere very far. Do you see, I was going to say, sort of in the B2B space, that people are often selling to someone who then has to sell it internally? Or do you have a way in your course to try and get to the right person when you need to?
You're always going to be selling it. You're always ideally selling it to the person that wants to buy it. So there's two important people in every opportunity. There's the technical stakeholder and the financial stakeholder. Technical stakeholder, usually an ICT, IT manager, CIO, CTO. They are, ticking the box technically to say that this is the right solution for them. And then you've got the financial stakeholder who's opening the wallet to make sure that they can afford this solution and procure it. So generally you are positioned or are aiming for position with that person. Very often, if you're doing a larger solution, you will have to go and defer to a CFO, a finance controller, even the board. And the general principle is the further you are away from the primary financial stakeholder, the more risk in your opportunity. So there's always going to be multivariate ways of dealing with this. Usually you are engaged with the primary stakeholders, or you are creating some sort of champion in the business. Like they might have to sell it internally as well, and how do you facilitate that internal championing? But yeah, usually what I teach is positioning and finding the highest leverage people in the organization towards the outcome is your primary concern as a salesperson, because those are the people you want to influence and mitigate all the people in between, because their opinions don't necessarily matter that much.
Yeah, and it's from experience that you need to find those right people. Otherwise, there's just more barriers, more gateways that you have to go through. And then that's where you do see 6 to 12 month buying cycles sometimes, just because there's so many people involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Like where I've spent the majority of my time, which is mid-market to tail end of enterprise and a bit of enterprise, the sales cycle is usually 6 months to 9 months anyway, because if you're doing your job right, you're not there when the solution needs to be done. You are going through the pre-sales process. There needs to be conversations. There needs to be technical specifications. You've got to be okay with that process and managing cycles throughout that. And then, yeah, look, if you go into bigger sales, bigger segments, into enterprise, government, it's slow, it's red tape, you're whale hunting, right? So yeah, like you have to understand all of that. And that's where the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in. You're like, people think sales is just, I'm just going to wear a suit, bust out the company credit card, and it's all going to be happy days, and we get my Tesla before you know it. Nope. There's way more to the game that you recognize.
The Dunning-Kruger, if I'm not mistaken, is people think they're smarter than they are on a certain topic.
Yeah, the Dunning-Kruger, it's like, you're like, how hard could this be? And you go to the valley of despair when you realize, man, this is as hard as shit.
Yeah,
right?
People never realize how complicated something is until they start looking into it properly. And like you said, once you're in that valley of despair, it's hard to get yourself out, depending on what you've been trying to do. Yeah,
man, the dip is there's a great. Don't know if you've heard of Seth Godin. He's a legendary marketer.
Yep.
And he's got a book about the dip, which is that valley of despair. And it's like that's the filter of people that are really committed to this game and people that are not. So that's a personal trait of recognizing whether you've got the guts to push through, or recognizing do you have the right model to succeed in or not. And maybe you just got to pivot. You don't know. That's what the dip is there to help you figure out.
Yeah, and then that separates, in lack of better terms, the shit talkers from the people that are confident and know how to get through it to be able to deliver what they're trying to actually deliver and talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some key things for the people listening out there to sort of look at when they're looking to probably bring in an AE, if they're at that point now where they think, all right, we're ready to expand, I can take the reins off the sales because I've built the business, I need to get that right support in now. So what are some key things they need to look out for in the people that they're bringing on board?
Yeah, so there is this real niche role for founders that want to transition out of founder-led sales into building a sales engine, and they're called frontier AEs. And that's something that I've sort of even discovered in the last 2 years. But with the frontier AE, you want a person that is basically what I've talked about, someone that is going to bring their own sales engine, their own sales motion, their own structure into the organization, and they are bought into the mission, the product, the solution that you've got, right? So ideally, you want with a frontier AE, you want them to be very comfortable with the lead generation process and know how to smash a cold call and a cold email, and is not afraid to prospect customers, because that's the hardest part. Your number one concern in business is leads, right? Sales cures everything. You don't get sales without leads. So someone that's got a really good sales structure and can manage that. Someone that's resourceful, because if you're bootstrapping, you've got limited cash, you don't have all the fancy tools that you need to be out in marketing, getting market intelligence, etc. Obviously, you need that strong hunter mentality, and you want someone with growth potential, right? Maybe they become your CRO. Maybe they become the head of sales, but they've got to have ambitions to climb and grow with you. Because because there's so much on the line in a startup, and there's so many missing pieces that need to be covered for with the human glue of what you do when you're the chief everything officer, that you can't have a person that's leaning. Someone's got to lift with you. So I think those traits, usually a high amount of experience, Maybe they've been an enterprise AE, maybe they've been a sales leader, and they're looking for that new challenge and just want to get out of corporate and want something that's more personally aligned to them. And that's something that I've actually taught to technical founders last year. Is, you know, what's your go-to-market? How do you fill for your own personal gaps? Right. So if you're a technical founder, then you've got to get the yin to your yang, right, and get someone that's happy to be out there and, you know, be the Steve Jobs to the Wozniak, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because it's very hard to find one person that can do it all.
Yeah.
The unicorns, they call them unicorns for a reason. Sometimes they're not real. But having a technical founder that can actually talk to people, if they've come from a development background, that's going to be very, very short pile you're pulling from.
Oh, yeah. Huge. Even in sales, mate. Like, I was called a unicorn once, which was nice, because one of the things that a lot of AE struggle that were in my position, I have no technological background, no formal qualifications in tech. So it's always eating at the back of my head, am I technical enough?
Yep.
But then it got to a point where I was just like, no, I'm determined to be technical enough and feel comfortable. Where I was, you know, I can speak to a CTO, a CIO, and be comfortable with the level of knowledge that I know, and then I know when to palm it off. And I said, this is past my pay grade. But that firm definition of your knowledge and being okay with passing it on to the right people to get to the truth is an extremely important trait in sales. So you're not bullshitting your customer. And it's a great way to facilitate your own confidence in sales as well. You know, I was creating my own, I wasn't designing the network from IP, but I could give you a high-level diagram of a network that I was going to build you and the interconnects and whatnot.
Yep.
So it's not that hard to do that. And even realistically, this is one of the things I'm sort of trending towards now, is it's getting easier to build and harder to sell, right? AI is developing things at a rapid pace that you can create prototypes easily, but if you don't have distribution, if you don't have an audience and attention to send people to that product, you're dead in the water. So, you know, if you are a technical founder, it's an absolute must nowadays to be successful, to have that human element and be okay talking passionately about what you do and why.
Yeah, and completely agree with that. As the technical founder in the business compared to my business partner, you rarely have technical conversations at the level of a developer. CTOs, if you're talking at larger businesses, they haven't been on the tools for a long time. They're not talking very technical, or they'll throw in, I was a programmer 25 years ago and this is what we used to do. No one talks technical unless you're talking to the implementation 100%. Team. So don't dive in. If you know your limits, like you said, hand it off, know when to talk and when not to talk is probably the key simplification of your message there.
Yeah, exactly right. And something I teach as well is exactly what you said, is that tech leaders, CIOs, CTOs don't want to talk tech. They are business value translators, right? They are trying to figure out how to hit strategic KPIs with the tools available to them, and that's usually about efficiencies and process as opposed to the bits and bobs. They've got their lead engineers, their lead architects for that. I say to my AEs, every engagement should be a multi-level engagement. I'm talking business and strategy with the executive, and then my SE, my engineer, is talking the nuts and bolts with their engineers. And then if you've got alignment at both levels, you're off to the races. And you have to be comfortable with that. But again, a lot of AEs are not, because they feel like they're being undermined, or they don't feel like they're enough because they should be talking, in air quotes, technical to the CTO to try and prove that they are worthy, or they're on the level. But that's not the level they want, actually.
No, and it takes you a while to probably learn that. So I know when I need to throw out the terms and prove that we know how to talk the talk and do the walk, but most of the time I'm not talking technically at all. It's, again, business, alignment, process is the value there. And that's it.
Yeah, exactly right, 100%.
So if anyone wants to reach out, Jameel, and learn more about the Tech Sales Academy, how can they do that?
Primary website, so I've got a free community, school.com/Tech Sales Academy. So that's where I've got a free community. I've actually got I've got a free course in there if you're trying to get your start in technology sales. I teach you everything you need to get into your first six-figure roles in AE. And then I've got a couple of courses in there, which is, Tech Sales OS and whatnot. Follow me on LinkedIn, Jameel Rehman, Jameel Rehman, Rehman. And my main website for my content is www.techsales.academy. You can also look up Tech Sales Academy on any social.
Awesome. And we'll put all those notes in the show notes for everyone to hopefully reach out and just get ahead with their business and bring some AEs with some real actual knowledge and power to come into their business.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Thanks, Jameel. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, and thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it, mate.
Thank you.